You know that thing your parents used to say? Work hard, stay focused, success will come. Maybe it was your mom, maybe it was your uncle, maybe it was your pastor or your imam telling you that God rewards the diligent. We all heard it, we all believed it. And then we grew up. We watched people with 2 degrees driving Okada, driving for Bolt and Uber. We watched market men and women who haven't taken a single day off in 20 years, still unable to pay their children's school fees. We watched factory workers get laid off after decades of service, corporate workers being owed months and even years of salary, while the company owner or CEO bought a second private jet or luxury vehicle. And then we ask ourselves, what happened? When did hard work stop paying? But here's the thing, that's the wrong question. The right question is, when did it ever pay? For who and why? That's what we're getting into today. Welcome to TNNP. And if you're new here, do grab a seat. This channel is about seeing Nigeria and the world, of course, clearly. Not the motivational poster version, the real version. Today, we're talking about something almost everyone has felt, but very few people have named properly. And that is the broken promise of hard work. So we're going to trace this thing from colonialism all the way down to the fuel subsidy removal. We're going to talk about something called class consciousness. What could class consciousness be? What is it? And why people in power don't want you to have it? Why people in power don't want me to have it? And why it might be the most important idea you encounter this year. And now this video is not intended to cause moral outrage or make you abandon work and encourage laziness. No, this is a video about waking up. Let's go. Hold on. What were we actually told? Let's start from there. Let's start from the promise itself. Work hard and you will succeed. Sounds simple. Sounds fair. Sounds like common sense even. But let's break it down. What does hard work actually mean in Nigeria? It means showing up every day, sometimes before sunrise, sometimes in the rain, carrying goods, marking papers, filing documents, farming land, driving routes, sewing clothes, writing code, cleaning offices, whatever your hustle is. And a better life, that means security, feeding your family, affordable healthcare, sending your kids to school, the capacity to pass improved circumstances down to your children. Maybe owning a small plot of land, living with dignity. That's all people want. Not mansions, not private jets, just dignity. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. The article that inspired this video puts very plainly. The majority of Nigerians who work hard across generations never experienced systematic, predictable improvement in their material condition as a direct result of that labor. Replay that again. Not like some people struggled, not like a few people fell through the cracks, but the majority across generations. Meanwhile, the generations of the few selling the majority fake dreams have been living lavishly on what is meant for everyone. So the question becomes, was the promise ever real? Or was it something else? There was no hard work promise because there was no wage labor. Now stay with me. To understand this properly, we have to go back. Because before there was Nigeria, there were societies, right? Benin Empire, Yoruba kingdoms, Igbo communities, Hausa Fulani states, Ijaw fishing communities, Tifi, Efik, Kanuri, name it. Hundreds and hundreds of people with their own economies. And here's what those economies had in common. There was no wage labor. Labor was organized via community. You help me plant today, I help you harvest tomorrow. Land wasn't something you bought or sold. It was held communally, accessible to those who needed it. If you farmed, you kept what you grew. You didn't work for someone else's profit. Now, we're not trying to romanticize the past. No. Pre-colonial societies had their own hierarchies, their own forms of exploitation, yes. But the point is this: the idea that you must sell your time to a boss just to survive, that idea was imported. It was imposed. And the way it was imposed was brutal. When the British came, they didn't ask Nigerians to join the formal economy politely. They forced them. Here's how it worked. Colonial governments introduced taxes, as in hot taxes, head taxes. Suddenly, Africans who had lived without money for generations needed cash, and needed cash desperately. And the only way to get cash was to work for the colonial economy, in mines, on railways, on plantations. They also took the land. Land that was once communal, once free, was privatized, fenced off, declared property of the colonial government or European companies. If you wanted to farm on it now, you paid, and to pay, you had to work. This is the origin of the work hard narrative. It wasn't a promise, it was a threat. Work for us on our terms, or lose your home. Work for us, or go to prison. Work for us, or watch your village burn. The Congo Free State shows this in its most horrifying form. You see, under King Leopold II of Belgium, African workers were given rubber quotas. If you didn't meet your quota, colonial soldiers would cut off your hands. There are documented photographs, people holding severed hands like evidence of a crime. Because it was indeed a crime. The crime of not producing enough for the European king. One missionary, William Shepherd, counted 81 severed hands drying under a fire in a single hut. A man named Nsala walked miles to a mission station carrying his 5-year-old daughter's hand and foot. And that was all that remained of her after soldiers killed and dismembered her because he had missed his quota. This is what the hard work, in quote, ethic was built upon. Now, Nigeria wasn't the Congo, of course, but the logic was the same. The colonial economy was designed with a clear purpose: to extract raw materials from Nigeria for processing in British factories and to create a market for British manufactured goods. And this required coerced labor for mines, railways, and plantations, taxations to force Africans into wage labor, since subsistence farming could not generate cash for taxes. Infrastructure designed for export, not internal development. An educational system that trained clerks and administrators, not engineers and industrialists. Workers were taxed into submission. Their villages burned if quotas were missed. Their families were taken hostage. And the narrative was always the same: we are teaching you to work, in quote. Hard work leads to prosperity. If you suffer, you are lazy. So they worked intensely. Their labor built the infrastructure that connected Nigeria, but connected it outward for export, not inward for development. The coal mines of Enugu, the tin miners of Lagos, the cocoa farmer in the southwest worked from dawn. The railway laborers, cotton farmers in the north broke their backs to make that possible. All of it, the cocoa, the cotton, the tin, the palm oil, flowed out of Nigeria through the railroads to the ocean and into British factories. It built Liverpool, it built London. It did not build Enugu or Kanu or Lagos. When independence came in 1960, Nigerians celebrated, and rightly so. But here's what independence did not change: the structure of the economy. The colonial economy was designed for extraction, and the Nigerian elite who took over did not dismantle it. They became its new managers. Fast forward to 1986. Nigeria is under military rule, right? The economy is struggling. And General Babangida goes to the IMF and the World Bank for loans. The IMF says, sure, we'll give you the money, but you have to do what we tell you. What they told Nigeria to do was called the Structural Adjustment Program, SAP. Remove fuel subsidies, float the currency, privatized state companies, cut government spending on health, education, social services. The promised result was economic growth that would trickle down to ordinary people. The actual result? Catastrophe. The naira went from 2 naira to the dollar in 1986 to 22 naira by 1993. Inflation shot from 5.7% to nearly 60%. Real wages fell by more than half in 5 years. Nigeria's external debt actually increased from $15 billion to almost $23 billion because the country was borrowing more just to survive a system that was destroying it. Doctors, teachers, civil servants, factory workers, people who had shown up every day and done everything right, found their wages were now worthless. Not because they stopped working, but because the system devalued their work. And here's the darkest part. That wasn't a mistake. That was the system working exactly as designed. The privatization of state assets didn't spread wealth. It concentrated it. State companies were sold, often at a fraction of their real value, to politically connected individuals. The elite didn't just have political power anymore. They now had ownership of the factories, the infrastructure, the assets that used to belong to the public. And here's something that should make your blood run cold. In 2023, under President Tinubu, the same playbook came back. Fuel subsidy removal, currency float, same policies, same institutions behind him, same results: inflation, unemployment, and naira in free fall. Different decade, same architecture. So we need to talk about class consciousness, because this is the idea that ties everything together. Class consciousness, simply put, is when you stop blaming yourself for a problem that the system created and start seeing the system as it is. You start seeing the system clearly. Let me give you an example. If you're working 12 hours a day and still cannot afford your children's school fees, the hard work, in quote, narrative says you're not working hard enough, you're not smart enough, you made bad decisions. Class consciousness, on the other hand, says 93% of Nigerian workers are in the informal economy, as in no contract, no benefits, no protection. That's not a personal failure. That's a structural reality. The difference between those two perspectives is enormous. One keeps you isolated, blaming yourself, competing with other poor people for scraps. The other connects you to millions of people in the same situation and points you toward the actual source of the problem. The hard work narrative exists to prevent class consciousness. I mean, if poverty is your fault, then the rich don't owe you anything. The system doesn't need to change, the elite stay comfortable, and you keep working harder, longer, for less. This is why the coal miners of Enugu in 1949 matter. They were among the first workers in Nigerian history to develop something like class consciousness. They recognized that suffering wasn't personal, it was structural. So they organized. They went on strike, and the colonial government's response was to send soldiers who killed them. The Iva Valley massacre, look it up. Why would the government kill striking miners? Because the organized workers who see the system clearly are the most dangerous thing to that system. And that hasn't changed. Look at the End Bad Governance protest. Look at every moment when Nigerians have risen collectively. The response is always the same: send soldiers to shoot. Because collective consciousness is the one thing the current arrangement cannot survive. So where does this leave us? At least not in despair. It leaves us with clarity. The problem was never that you did not work hard enough. The problem is that you've been working hard inside a system that was designed to extract your labor, not reward it. A system built during colonialism and reinforced by SAP, and now maintained by an elite that uses private jets to London hospitals while public infrastructure crumbles. The question isn't, how do I work harder? The question is, what kind of work actually changes anything? And the answer historically, has always been collective work. Market women building mutual aid networks, workers organizing across industries, communities refusing illegal levies, citizens building real political alternatives, people connecting with individual suffering on a shared structural reality and deciding together to change it. None of this is easy, none of it is fast. But it is the only thing that has ever actually worked. The miners of Enugu knew this in 1949. The workers who built the labor movements that won the 8-hour workday knew it. The people who ended apathy knew it. None of them got there by working harder as individuals. They got there by building collective power. Hard work is not the enemy. Dignity is worth fighting for, of course. But the fight is not individual. No, it never was. The lie they told us, work hard and succeed, was never the description of reality. It was a tool for managing us, for keeping us isolated, for making sure we blamed ourselves instead of examining the structure. But now you've seen the structure. What you do with it is up to you. If this video made you think, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd like to know, when did you first realize the promise wasn't real? And subscribe if you want to keep seeing Nigeria clearly. See you next time.